And then as we go, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. Just blurt it out, and I'll answer as best I can. I think that's probably the easiest way. So I'll log into the information technology instance. CWL authentication. And I probably talked about this with you guys last time, but as I always like to mention, the look and feel is still very dated. It's been around for a very long time. This application was created in 2001. And as far as functionality goes, it's been kind of, it's evolved over time, but certainly in terms of look and feel, it's never really been touched. That's something we're hoping to do this summer, which is great. But that's kind of why it's still looking so old, like an old PeopleSoft application or something like that. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see. Great. So when you log in, if you're a supervisor or an administrator, it'll bring you automatically to this kind of select new profile page. So you can kind of choose from. If you're an administrator, you can choose from anyone in the instance. If you are a supervisor, you would see just a list of your employees, including yourself. But if you're just an employee and not a supervisor or an administrator, it'll just take you straight to your profile. You can see below here also, since I'm the supervisor, I have a few unapproved absence requests that are pending. So if you hover over them, you can see it's confirm leave, confirm vacation, and if I click either of those, it'll take me to those records. But I'll get back to that afterwards. So just look up my profile. Perfect. So this is my profile within Pat. I wonder if you can change the contrast at all. It's just a little bit.
It's a little bit dark.
Yeah.
That's better.
Better? Great. Okay. Perfect. So starting up at the top, obviously my first name and last name, my email address, and my employee ID up in the right-hand corner. Employee ID is important in our application just because that's what our CWL authentication checks against, is employee ID. Just underneath that, there's groups. So group refers to employment group. So we kind of have all the standard UBC employment groups: MMP, QP116, 2950, TRA, BCGU, or whatever it's called. I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head. But we have all those kind of built in. And largely what that group informs, I mean, it's definitely for reporting purposes. It can break people out by group for reports. But also it'll inform the vacation entitlement, the sick leave entitlement, and how that accumulates. Vacation is by year, sick leave is by month, that sort of thing. Just below that, department, so that's just a one-level reporting hierarchy field. And this is kind of, this field is really defined by the administrators of the department or the faculty. And this can really be named whatever they choose. So in a unit like UBC IT, it's a little bit more simple because we just use that field to delineate team names. But in a larger organization like Faculty of Arts, for instance, it's a little bit, there has to be a little bit more forethought put into it, just because there's, there might be several HR teams, one for, literature, one for history, one for fine arts, that sort of thing. So it's really just a naming convention that affects reporting. So that's all that does, and it's really up to the administrators for how they'd like to group their users, essentially, for reporting purposes. So, for instance, for Faculty of Arts, they have, like I said, it might say literature-HR, or literature-dean's office, and then they would have history-HR, and that would kind of delineate the different teams, however they choose, though. And then just in the middle here, so FTE, that's just the FTE percentage. Underneath that are just some kind of entitlements that they have within the application. So toil, overtime, extra time enabled. I have that enabled as yes, just to show that feature. So for most of these, if this is enabled yes, they'll have access to the module up at the top. So toil, overtime, extra time, you can see that at the top, and I'll go into that afterwards. Flex time enabled, I have that set to no. But that works very similar to the toil, overtime, extra time. It's just a way for employees to track their flex time in a calendar view and have their managers kind of updated about that. Working from home, same thing. Just a way for employees to update in their personal calendar and which days they're working from home if that is something they're entitled to. Manual updates enabled, that's set to no by default for all users, just because manual updates basically means they're allowed to adjust their own vacation balance and that sort of thing, so that's by default set to no. Enter his/her own absences, unapproved. So there's three options here for enter his/her own absences. There's approved. So approved is if you have someone who is maybe like, in our case, our CIO, she's entering her absences into the application, but there's no one's actually going in and approving it. So that's kind of that example. But for the most part, everybody else is unapproved. And then the third option is no. So if you have some staff that for whatever reason they don't have access to computers, they're not really going to be logging in, and you have kind of a central administrative person that you want to do all the recording for them, you can set their profile to no, so they can, if they would like to, they can still log in and look at their balances and that sort of thing in the application, but they actually won't be able to log in and request time off through the application. They would have someone do that for them. That's kind of a legacy feature that, because previously Pat was, no one had the ability to log in and request their own absences. When Pat was first created, it was more of just for that central administrator to enter everyone's time and have that place to report from. But we kept that feature because the feedback from some of the groups is there are still a few teams where they do have that central administrative person that wants to enter everything for everybody.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
Does it support, say the scenario of like our HR admin, she enters her own absences, but say our director wants to be notified?
Yep.
So Pat supports notifications?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Just over on the right-hand side, carryover approved, that's just a yes or no flag. So if that's set to no, that means at the end of the year, if I have more than 10 days of vacation or 70 hours, Pat will chop whatever's above 70 and notify me in my balance report to say, carry over to 2017, you had this many hours, the carryover flag was set to no, so you lost this many hours. And that can be added after the fact. We do have a lot of cases where, for whatever reason, people have a large balance left over and their supervisor or administrator didn't set their carryover flag approved to yes, and they get their balance chopped off, and that can just be added back manually.
Is there a maximum balance on those ones?
A maximum balance for vacation? I don't know. I know there is for sick leave.
There's one for sick leave.
Yeah, for sick leave, because it's in the collective agreement. You can only, I think it's 1,064 hours or something like that is the maximum amount of sick leave. But for vacation, I don't know that there is. So yeah.
And so if it hits that, just stops adding more.
Exactly. Yeah. And so just below the carryover approved is the entitlements. So for my third year, which is this year, my fourth year, which is next year, and that's really looking at my UBC date down here and calculating the entitlements based off of my employment group. So it knows since I'm M&P, this is what I'm entitled to for my third and fourth year. So down below, like I mentioned, UBC date. Below that is position date. Position date is really just informational. There's no calculations within the application that that's used for. It's just kind of for records purposes how long that person's been in their current position for. Below that, term job, just a yes or no. If it is yes, there's another field that pops up called term end date. If that term end date is populated, when that term end date arrives, their profile will be set to inactive and they'll be effectively within the application recognized as a terminated or an employee that's left or no longer active. That can still be reversed later on. There's plenty of occurrences where, for whatever reason, that person's profile wasn't adjusted if their contract or their term was extended, they could just be re-enabled after the fact. It's not a problem. Leave balance start date. So that's a little bit deceptive. It's just this is really telling the application from what point in time do you want to start calculating this person's sick leave accumulation within the application. So if you're entering a net new employee, that leave balance start date is always going to be their start date, because it's their first day with you. They're going to start accumulating their sick leave from there. But the reason we have this field is, for instance, if we worked with two groups over the last little while bringing people in, and they're bringing people into the application around April, May timeframe, even into June. So they're looking at how they can enter those people into the system for this year and still have a complete record of this year when they go to do reports at the end of the year. So what we do is we get them, when they're entering people into the system, we get them to enter their balances as of January 1st of this year. And then we set the leave balance start date to January 1st of this year as well. So that way when the people that they're entering into the system, they're going in with their January 1st date. From there, the system is accumulating their sick leave as per that date. And then those people are able to go in afterwards and input their historical leaves. So their historical vacation that they've already taken this year, their any absences, and usually it's their supervisors doing that for them. And again, it's just so that way when they run reports at the end of the year, it's kind of an accurate representation of the entire year. But yeah, that's why that field exists. Below that is hours worked. So this is just informing the application of how many hours per day you work. So when you're taking multiple days off in a row with a vacation request, or maybe it's an extended leave or something like that, it knows how many hours per day to deduce from your balance.
Is that field adjustable?
Yep.
Like, can I have it so, well, I'm asking on terms of flex days, because the admin staff here to have flex time where they're accumulating 7.75 hours per day, and then they're switching half the year back down to 7.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be adjusted. Like you could have it at 7.75 and then come into their profile and switch it back to 7 at a later date. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during that time, we would be using that number. And then, okay.
So you can't give a schedule and say for these 14 weeks are on flex time?
No, I don't believe so. Yeah. And then over to the right is just the edit information button, which allows you to change all this information on the go.
Can an employee change their own flex time, like turn that on off? Or
No.
The administrator has to do that?
Administrator or supervisor, yeah, they wouldn't have access to that. So below all that, we kind of have the reporting matrix. So you can see for me, it has my primary supervisor. You can see also there's 3 different types of supervisor: primary supervisor, view edit supervisor, and view only. Primary supervisor and view edit supervisor have all the same privileges. They can view everything, edit everything within your profile. The only difference is that a primary supervisor will get the notifications whenever there's a request or a change. The view edit supervisor won't get the notifications. So often the view edit supervisors are people that would cover for your manager. So in my case, it's my manager's manager, my director. So or maybe it's an administrative person within your unit that kind of looks after coverage for everybody, that sort of thing. And if you click on that, it'll show my view edit supervisors. Reload. There you go. And then over to the right. Oh, and sorry, just the view only supervisor. That's pretty much what it sounds like. It's just like a read only access to those people's profile, where you have them set as a view only supervisor, and that's really for kind of HR admin / coordinator roles, where they're really just doing reporting based on people's sick time. They're not actually approving anything or making any changes to people's profiles. They're really just reporting to central HR. It's a role we don't see used very much, but it is in a few rare cases. And then over to the right-hand side, you can see employees supervised by me, and what type of supervisor I am for those employees. And you can also add employees to a different supervisor, like by checking them. You can add me as a supervisor for any employee, and you can add more supervisors for me there as well. And then down at the bottom, just there's a notes section, which isn't used very often, but the one scenario where I think this is used is if, say, someone has a certain stipulation in their contract that they negotiated before they came on, like maybe they're M&P, but they negotiated for a 5th week for their first 6 years. That kind of note could be left here for all the other administrators and supervisors, so that way they know if they ever see that person with 5 weeks, they know why or that sort of thing. It's kind of just a shared information, but yeah, not used too often.
But can you actually change the system so that every year that person's getting, say, that 8 weeks they negotiated, or every year you have to change it?
Every year you would have to change it, and it's because every year it's going to give them an allotment based on their employment group and their UBC date. So it wouldn't know, for instance, for that one employee that they have a special agreement. That's something you'd have to manually go in and add whatever it is, 35 hours for if they have an extra week. Yeah. Great. So that's pretty much the profile. Now I'll go into vacation, just to kind of show you what vacation requests look like. So just up at the top here, vacation, you can see there's a lot of outstanding requests because this is the test instance. But yeah, so there's kind of 2 sections, vacation scheduled and vacation taken. Typically vacation taken, none of it's in pending, that's all usually approved because it's already been taken. And also, if I were looking at my own profile, it's because I'm a super administrator, that's why I can see this, but I wouldn't be able to see the approve or reject options. That would only be for my supervisor, they would be able to see those. Typically, you'd only be able to see the edit or delete. So if you have a request, that's been approved, you cannot edit or delete it. Because theoretically it's already been approved. Or sorry, if you have a request that's been approved and taken, you cannot edit and delete it. Edit or delete it. But if you have a request that's been approved and it's only scheduled, it's future dated, you can still go in and edit it or delete it, and it will trigger a notification to your supervisor, letting them know that there's been a change, there's another unapproved or another request that needs to be reviewed. Yeah, so if I scroll down to here, oh, and sorry, just up at the top you can see that it's referencing that 7 hours per day, what percentage of FTE I am, what my remaining vacation balance is for this year, and then down below you'll see kind of like an audit trail for your vacation balance. So any adjustments that are made to your vacation balance, they're recorded here. For myself, it's really just the 2 annual ones, but if you ever had to manually adjust someone's vacation balance, like dynamically give them some more for whatever reason, or remove some vacation, maybe they're leaving in a few months and you need to retroactively trim their vacation because they're not going to be here for the full year and they were given a full year of vacation at the beginning of the year, it would show right in here how many hours you removed from their profile and what the reason was. You can leave a note to say, removed vacation because the person is leaving it at this point in time.
Is there any kind of master calendar view that you can see when everybody's away that month?
Yes, you do. Yes, yeah. I'll show that afterwards. So add new vacation record. Really straightforward. Start date and end date. Just select those. For us, we'll do today to tomorrow. And it's going to take 7 hours per day. You can allow selected Saturday, Sunday, or statutory holiday as vacation day if you have a vacation request that's going over weekends and maybe you have a staff member that does work weekends. By default, the application will skip any weekends or stat holidays, and it won't deduce that time from your vacation balance. But if you do have staff that does work weekends or stat holidays, it will select those days as vacation days, and it'll draw that from their balance. A description field below that. There's unapproved, approved, and declined. Again, the only reason I can see that is because I'm a super administrator. For everybody by default, again, it would be unapproved.
Is that those checkboxes are disabled? Is that right?
Yes, and it's because I don't have any. It's because I don't have any of those days selected. If I were to go over a weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just because the application knows that the days I'm looking at aren't weekends or holidays. But if I were to go over a weekend, it would. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Look at. Great. And we can see that there, it's pending. So the notification's working one of two ways. The first option is once a request is created in any given day, it will send a notification to that supervisor. However, we do have a setting within the system, and this is kind of based on feedback from pretty much all of our departments, and it was that they didn't want to receive a ton. They were getting a ton of emails for each request or each change. Someone would enter a request and then they change something and they get another notification that same day, and really it was piling up and they felt like they were getting spammed. So we have a setting where supervisors will only receive one notification for absence requests in any given day. So we have two options in terms of how they'll receive that notification. The first is, and this one's not used as much, it's only really used in small groups, is the supervisor will receive a notification as soon as the first request in any given day is made. The downside to that, of course, is if there's a request made later in the day, they wouldn't receive a notification for it. They'd only see it when they logged into the application. The other option is that at the end of the day, the application will look and see if a supervisor has any of their reports with the request, and if there's one or more, it'll send a notification to that person at midnight saying, FYI, you have one or more employees that has a request you need to review. Please log into the application. And we find most people use that. It's easier for them. Again, that notification triggers overnight. They come in the next day. It's there for them. They can go in and take a look at the requests in the application. So that's usually the easiest. Great. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. Once the supervisor approves it, the employee will get a notification as well saying your profile's been updated. Please log in to review. The notifications, we don't include any personal information, so there won't be any details about what the request is in the notification, and it's just for like a privacy standpoint. Yeah.
So when you create a request, I saw that there's a box that like for the partial request or something like how.
Yes.
How much like you go to the minutes?
Yeah. No, it's to the decimal point. So yeah, you can't go to the minutes, but it is to the decimal point. I think it's to 2 decimal points. So yeah, that's how that works.
And sorry, that partial day. So when you enter that partial day.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, like if you have a date range, there's no way to specify whether it's say like a half day on the day you're coming back or a half day that you're leaving.
Yeah, if you were gonna do it that way, you'd probably have to, for say you're going for 5 days and the day you're coming back is a half day.
Yeah.
Then for 4 days, you'd probably enter one request for 4 days, and then you'd enter another request for that half day.
Okay. So that partial field there, though.
You would enter the partial field for the second request for the half day.
Okay, you do have to manually split it. That way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can't tell if it's like half day in the morning, half day in the afternoon.
No, we don't have a way of specifying that. You could do that in the description if you wanted to, but yeah, we don't have a way of specifying that. Yeah, we don't record.
Or like a notes field or something.
And that's pretty much general for all of the requests. Is we don't record the time, so if it's a medical dental appointment, unless the person is specifying, you get in the notes, like the description when that appointment is. The application's not going to record, it was from 8 to 10 in the morning or that sort of thing. Yeah. Great. So again, if you're a supervisor, I'll just go back to select new profile. So if I've received a notification and I have employees with an absence to review, I'll see this here and I'll click on it. And that is, the reason it's not showing anything is because, again, this is our test instance, so that request is actually probably for 2015's So if I bring up 2015, yeah, you'll see there's some pending requests for 2015. As a supervisor, again, you can go in and edit if you want to add notes. Say maybe you need more information about what the request is for, or you have questions about why these dates or whatever. You can do that there.
An email for that too.
Yes. Or you can just reject or approve. So if we go to approve, this request, yes, done. Perfect. And again, yeah, they'll get a notification for that. Great. Okay. So let's go back to my profile here. Great. So now we'll go into leave. And leave operates very similar to vacation. There is a balance up at the top. There is a balance up at the top. And the way that balance accumulates is month by month. It looks at working days within the month. So as soon as someone's worked 11 working days within the month, it'll credit them the 8.75 hours of sick leave that they're entitled to. And we have a few options within the application where you can as a faculty or as a department, you can make a decision, okay, we want people to be able to go into negative for their sick leave and vacation balances, or we don't. So if we don't, it'll throw an error or throw a warning if they try to go into negative, and it'll let them know they don't have enough balance remaining. But if you do, then it'll just go into the negative, and you'll see that number there. And when they get more time into their balance, it'll top up, that sort of thing. So we see more and more departments going towards being able to allow negative balances. It just makes it easier. The supervisor still has to approve it, so if someone's requesting something and they're going into the negative, it's not like they can just take that time. It still has to be approved by their supervisor, but we find it a bit easier just because I'll use the vacation example. So if it's maybe December and someone wants to borrow a few days of vacation for their next year, if you don't allow a negative vacation balance, typically what you'd have to do is for that person, you'd have to go in and manually add a few days. And then when the next year rolled around, you'd have to go in and manually subtract a few days. If you allow a negative, you can just allow them to take those 3 days of vacation that they wanted to take in December. And then when the next year rolls around, it'll just top up based on that negative number. So you don't have to worry about adding or subtracting. Yeah.
So if somebody overspends their sick time and they're actually charged for it,
Yep.
then you manually go and make all of those changes? Is that how that works? To adjust their sick time, or?
Yeah, so again, if you don't allow a negative, you mean?
Well, sometimes somebody goes so far over that they actually have to pay back time.
Right. Yeah, so there is a sick balances report, and you can look at specifically who's in the negative if that's something you're tracking. And so yeah, usually the HR person would run that report, and if there was someone who was that far over, either they'd already be in contact with that person's supervisor, or they would go and process that manually from there. Yep. So if I go to add a new leave record, very similar setup. So select the start date and end date. Since we're already away these days, we'll select the 27th. And then you have kind of your choice of leave options. And those leave options are customizable for each department that we have. So we kind of go with two standard templates for people to start from. This one's kind of the more verbose template, which is very letter of the law. This is kind of exactly what you're entitled to as an MMP employee as per the employment contract. But some departments, they don't like having this many options for people. They find it a bit confusing, or maybe a bit too kind of a wall of words. So they have it simplified to 4 or 5 options. Based on employment group, it knows which leave types to present you with. So, for instance, because I'm M&P, it slots medical dental appointment under unpaid leave, whereas if I was QP, it would slot medical dental appointment under paid leave, that sort of thing. Great. So yeah, so I'll just enter the personal illness, and we'll enter as unapproved. Just enter some notes. Sometime. And add. There we go. Perfect.
So did you fill out the hours one?
I didn't fill out the hours actually. I actually just kind of left it blank, so it took it as full day records.
So
Yep.
it defaults full days.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't fill out the hours, it'll default as full day. Yep.
And full days based on year 7.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So you don't pay the way to upload the doctor note.
Pardon?
You don't pay the way to upload doctor note.
Upload which? Sorry.
A doctor's note.
Oh, a doctor's
Yeah,
note.
no way to upload a doctor's note.
No, we don't have a way to upload documents or attach documents. Theoretically, if you wanted to do it, we don't have a way to upload a document, like scan it and attach it, sort of thing. No, we don't have that in the setting. Sometimes we get asked about emails. Can we attach an email? And we usually just say copy and paste the content of the email into the description if you want to track that conversation within that record. But with the doctor's note, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that. So 21 hours, that 21 hours would be taken from my sick leave balance.
Also a question, so
Yep.
sick leave still has to go through the whole approval process, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Yep. Has to go through the same approval process. Any request would have to go through that same approval process. So the same notification to the supervisor, depending on the option you have, whether it's instantaneous, one per day, or just the one at the end of the day.
Do you find it kind of strange, like requesting sick time?
Well, it's really a process thing. So, for instance, with my team and most of the teams that I talk to, the employees are never actually entering their sick time themselves.
Yeah.
It's usually they're emailing their supervisor,
Yes.
and their supervisor's coming and entering it for them, the way I just did. So
this method that you just showed doesn't really get used then?
no, I mean, well, it gets used, but instead of the employee doing it, it would be the supervisor doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it works the exact same way, right? So instead of going into my profile, I would go into, if it was Derek on my team requesting it, I'd go into his profile, select the day, say sick time, say received email from Derek, blah, 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 sick today, enter it as approved, and done. So yeah, you could have people do it like retroactively, like, if say you have a really large team and it's hard for you to administratively just keep track of all that sort of stuff, you could have them just, when you get back to work, make sure when everybody gets back to work, make sure they're entering their own requests and that sort of thing. So they can retroactively enter that when they get back to work. They don't have to do it day of or anything. Yeah. The other thing we have is show leave history. So this will show your entire leave history as it affects your balance. So you can see starting March of 2014, my balance starts accumulating for kind of my monthly accumulation. You'll see some illness records that draws down my balance, that sort of thing. So we find this really handy for if there's ever any dispute about, that number doesn't seem right, my balance seems wrong, this sort of thing. To show the leave history will always kind of tell the tale, and because of that option, we don't actually get a lot of questions about leave balances or that sort of thing.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So it seems like you have a little leave icon like on an approved record.
Yeah.
So it means that even though it's in the past, it's only happened, you still be able to do it.
Yes. You could, as I think, and I haven't logged in as a supervisor in a really long time just because I have administrator access. But I believe for past records, I believe you wouldn't see the delete icon or the edit icon for that matter. I can only see that because I'm a supervisor.
Or an admin.
Or an admin.
Not a supervisor.
Not a supervisor.
Not zero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. that's
So as soon as it's passed, in the past at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that is an option as well. So that is an instant setting. We have it so that if you do want people to be able to edit past records, you can. But there's also the setting that you can't. So that's locked down. Yeah.
So do you think it's better for, say, an HR admin to do adjusting records afterwards, or go in and edit a previous one? So say there was an error.
Right. So say there was an error. Yeah, I mean, I would probably say it's better to go in and edit it as opposed to delete it and create a new one. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it would be better to edit it, and the only reason being is because this here is see the trail of changes. So it would kind of give you a bit of a bit more of a full picture. Whereas if you delete the record and add a new one, all you'd see is that new record. Whereas if you edit it over, you can if you were curious, you're like, oh, I don't remember this. You can click on that and see the entire chain. Leave starting balance updates down at the bottom. So this works same as the vacation balance update. So if there's ever a manual update to your leave balance for whatever reason, it would show here as kind of an audit trail. Great. So the next thing I'll show is just quickly the time off in lieu, overtime, extra time module. And that works.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Oh, sure.
Back relating to that trail of changes. So say I put in a request for time, my manager deems it too long and says, no, you got to trim it down. What's the process for that? Is the user put in a different request? Are they able to edit that? Is the supervisor the one that edits it? How does that work?
Yeah, so either. Say you put in a request and the request is too long or for too many hours, that sort of thing, and the supervisor leaves notes saying, hey, this request is too long, please change it. The employee can go in and edit it again themselves. So they can go in and edit the time or the day if they want to, and that would trigger the request back to the supervisor, and then they could go in and approve. Or if the supervisor wanted to, say he had already talked to the employee about it, he could go in and manually change it himself.
Okay.
Great. So just going into that.
When a supervisor updates the employee's record, does the employee also get notified back?
Yes. So the time off in lieu, overtime, extra time earned. Again, there's a balance, and that balance is really only generated by the overtime earned feature. So if you create a record for overtime earned, it's all set to 2015. There we go. So you can see on April 18th, I accumulated 2 hours of overtime. That was approved. So that went into my balance. So now that I have a balance of 2 hours, I have the ability to take that balance as either time off or payout. So if I take that time as time off, again, it goes through that approval workflow, and my manager would approve that I'm taking that two hours off on any given day. And if I want to pay out, this is just an extra feature that we have. Not a lot of people use it, but if you request a payout, same thing, it goes to your supervisor first for approval. If it is approved, that triggers a further workflow of an email to an email address that typically your HR team is specifying, and it sends them an email with information saying this employee requested a payout of this many overtime hours. It was approved by their supervisor, and then that allows them to go ahead and start processing that overtime payout request. Yeah, so that's how that works. The conferences module, I won't get into that. It's basically the exact same thing. It's just the same as the flex time, same as the working from home. It's just a way for you to state which days you're working at a conference, and your supervisor approves that. Help, that just contains some FAQs, a few guides, some step-by-step guides with screenshots for people to be able to walk through and look at things. Calendar, so this is your personal calendar. You can see there's some icons there that state what everything is, and it goes month by month. And if I go into reports, I'll bring up first this current month vacation toil schedule. So this is kind of that month-by-month view that you were asking about earlier. So you can see there's a few different views. There's my peers, my immediate team, all my staff. So that would be everybody that you're a supervisor for, including not just a primary, but also a view edit supervisor, and then everybody. So, and everybody will be filtered based on this field up here. So everybody is all departments, or if you want to specify a particular department. And this is really, this feature is really controlled by one setting. So for most people, we find that because this view also, will only show, will typically only show vacation, working from home, conferences, flex time, that sort of thing, with the exception of people that you supervise, because you're obviously able to see their sick time already. So the application will show you their personal time. But if you're looking at, say I went to everybody, it wouldn't show me everybody else's sick time and everything. It would just show their vacation time, their working from home, that sort of stuff. So it almost operates like an Outlook calendar. But that setting can be controlled faculty-wide or department-wide. So we have very few, but some departments want it so that no, you can only see within your own department. You can't see other departments' vacation time. I don't know why they want that, but some people might. So that is an option as well. But yeah, so
for the one that says like my immediate team.
Yep.
Does that include yourself on that team too, or
I
not?
believe it does.
I had that request as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So is there a way to export that so you can post it on the web or something like that?
Yes. So we used to have export in Excel and PDF, but we removed those functionalities just because we found that because this is using an older version of Cold Fusion, it was having issues with current browsers. So it wasn't really actually working the way it was supposed to, and it wasn't working at all really, so we disabled that. But it is something we'll revisit once we update the look and feel, is being able to export things into Excel and PDF.
So like a note of there, so it's like only IE.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which shouldn't even really be there. So export table to spreadsheet, so you can see that typically would have been clickable, but it's not anymore. And it that verbiage shouldn't probably even be there. I think it's just because it's the test instance that it's there. Great. So yeah, and there's a bunch of other reports as well. Annual report. So you can filter by specific employee, by a department, by an employment group. You can have a detailed report. You can ask the report to include inactive employees in that. UBC Human Resources, we find this is probably the most popular ones for administrators within the different faculties, just because this is the report that they have to monthly send to UBC, like central HR, and this is something that they usually have to go in and calculate manually themselves. So this is really easy for them. Often what they'll do is they'll just take this report and just copy and paste it into a spreadsheet and send it off. It makes it a lot easier for them. Carryover violations. So again, this is going back to that carryover flag that I talked to. So if you have this report will show you for all the people that have carryover flags set to no. So if they're not entitled to carry over more than 70 hours, who has over 70 hours. So at the end of the year, what our administrators do is they run this report and they see if anyone has over 70 hours and they're not entitled, or as per the application, they're not yet entitled to take more than that 70 hours over them into the next year. Then they know who they need to contact to either say, hey, you got some vacation you need to take, or B, they know they need to set that person's carryover flag to yes if they are entitled to take that vacation forward. And then just some other basic reports: staff currently on vacation or time off, staff currently on leave, vacation report, UBC dates, so it's just upcoming anniversary dates, things like that. And then of course the instance settings. So this is just kind of some of the flags within the system that that kind of determine a lot of the business rules. So Some of the ones we talked about already: allow negative vacation balance, allow negative leave balance, send notifications when updates are made. So some ones that are pretty basic, but we include them anyways, just because some people don't like notifications. Show vacation balance as negative. So this is just some reporting options. Allow working from home, so this feature will be visible. Yeah, things like that. So, and then just going over to the far left-hand side, under administration, there's enter new employees. Oh, yes, right.
Should you send us that list of features?
Yeah, sure. I can send you the links for that. Administrator setup, enter new employees. Pretty straightforward, just entering new employees into the system. The way that comes up is just a little table. Add new employee, fill out some of the more basic fields, things that we already talked about in the employee profile. Once you fill all those out, just update employee and it adds them to the system. Holidays, so that's just for a super administrator. That's how we define our stat holidays within the application. Supervisor setup, so if you're an administrator and you want to set up lots of supervisors at the same time, you can go in here to do it. So it just is a way of looking at that table the way it is in everybody's profile, and you can just kind of change it based on this field here. So it's just a way to dynamically jump between employees you want to update supervisors for. Sick days credit, leave type setup. These are all kind of just administrative functions for super administrators, departments. So this is where you would go in and define your different departments or your different teams within your faculty or department. Again, this is something that the faculty or department administrators would do, not us as super administrators. They just define, for reporting purposes, what they'd like to name their teams, that sort of thing. Let's see, vacation balance updates. So this is the way you would do manual updates. So increase or decrease, what's the reason? That'll add to my kind of audit trail, depending on what you do. And then leave balance updates works the exact same way. So add update. Here we go. And then terminate, delete employee. Just what it sounds like. So if you terminate an employee, that gives you the ability to delete them. So you can't delete an employee unless they've already been terminated or set to inactive. And when you terminate an employee, there's an option that will actually, it'll prompt you to say, would you like to correct that person's vacation balance? So it'll retroactively say, okay, this person's only worked till this day. I know I need to trim this much vacation because they got their annual allotment. So that's pretty much it in terms of usability. Is there any questions you guys can think of right now or anything else you want me to go through?
So how can you deal with the person working for two departments, like half and half?
Yeah, so right now we don't have, we only have that one level reporting field. The only way I can think of doing it is creating a new department that is a split. So if someone works for both IT and HR, you would create a new department called IT/HR and then slot that person into that department. Yeah, that's the only workaround we would have that right
How
now.
do you do that when the person's only got one account? Which one will he be able to flip to see which?
What do
Are
you?
you going to combine his total on one?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
They get their own department, basically.
But is this sort of by department? Like, so it's per department? Like, do you have a profile for one department? So he has to flick in and out of the two?
He's getting his own department. Like,
Yeah, when I say department, I mean that's just the. I mean, and maybe you're thinking like if they're, say you have someone in the faculty of science, but then you also have someone in the faculty of arts. Is that what you mean? Yeah. In that case, there really isn't a way to control
science,
that.
half-time arts.
Yeah. In that case, there really wouldn't be a way for you to, and I don't even know if you'd want to track
Right, because they'll have their own them in art and own them in science. But this
Exactly.
way-
So you'd probably have a 0.5 profile for them here, and they'd have a 0.5 profile for them there.
But then there's only one user. Like the one user can have multiple profiles?
Yeah, well, and that's at the login screen. You can choose which instance you're logging into. So they would have an instance in the arts, or they would have a profile in the arts instance, and then also in the science instance in that
So
in that
you are
scenario.
allowed to have different, okay.
Yes, definitely.
What does having multiple supervisor buys mean?
What's the benefit of it?
Yeah.
The benefit would be just mainly for coverage. So if your primary supervisor is away that day or away on vacation.
So the system automatically knows it's either or any one of the supervisor approved and you're done?
Yeah, so say you have one primary supervisor and you have two view edit supervisors, so you have 3 supervisors total. When you submit a request, the notification will go to the primary. If that primary is away, you would theoretically know they're away because they're your supervisor, you know they're not there. You would probably reach out to your one of the view edit supervisors for yourself. In my case, my manager's manager, and I would say, oh, hey, Claudio, I have this request I need you to approve, and then he could log into the application and approve it. And like if Kevin, my manager, came back and saw that, he would be able to log in the system and see that it was already approved, and he'd see that Claudio approved it. Yeah.
So back to my question, so when you create a profile, you have some way to indicate it's a half profile for
A half profile, like you were saying 50-50, is there a way to indicate that it's like a 50%?
Yeah, so that's with the FTE field. So the FTE field right now, like mine is set to 1. So if I go to your current profile, so you would just set the FTE to 0.5, and that would know their accumulation was based on 0.5 FTE. Yeah.
not a question, but the way you calculate it simply, like when, let's say someone on vacation for the whole month, you calculate it simply for that vacation day.
Sorry, say that again.
Like someone on vacation for the whole month.
Yep.
Do you calculate 8.5 day, 8.5 hour for sick leave for that month?
Yep. Yeah, that's because that still counts as them work. Actually, we had a debate about this. So definitely vacation would count as them working a day. And as it turns out, according to Central HR, even if they're sick for the whole month, they would still accumulate 8.75 hours of sick leave.
So even if you're sick, you get sick time.
That's right. It still counts as technically a working day.
So the other way around, if you're sick, you still be able to accumulate a vacation day.
Well, yeah, but vacation day doesn't accumulate dynamically. Vacation is allotted at the beginning of the year, so yeah, it wouldn't apply in that case, but yeah.
How does this thing track flex time? Like if alternate, like for 45 minutes more each day, or 2 weeks and you get the every other Friday off? How can this thing implement that?
Yeah, so it's not really tracking, like you're not telling the system, oh, I take every second Friday off or anything like that. It's not quite that configurable. There's not that level of specification, but here, let me edit my own profile and allow me to enter flex time. So for argument's sake, let's say my hours worked are 7.75. So if I were to say, or 8 or 9, I think 7.75 hours is what most of the people in applied science work. It's 7.75 hours, and then every second Friday I take a day off. The application knows, and your administrator knows, your supervisor knows that you're working 7.75 hours per day. And then what you would do is under flex time, you would just add a record for each of the flex days you're taking. So say next Friday is going to be one of my flex days, I would create a record for that. And just select that as unapproved. Perfect. Yeah, so there's not really a way to systematically set it up.
So it's almost like an on-off switch of a flex day. It's not like you could say between the month of May to the end of December, this is a flex period, and then you don't get flex until then.
Yeah,
So
no,
you
you
have
just
to go in May 1st to change it.
yeah.
And
yeah.
then how will it calculate the days, the history of what you were before? Like when you do the final report?
Well, it's
is
it's
it
not
final?
calculating anything really. There's no calculation in the FlexDay module. It's not tracking like a balance or you're only entitled to this many. It's really just like working from home or like conferences. It's really just you adding, this is my flex day. That would go to your supervisor for approval. They're approving it. So there's no logic to say, oh, okay, from this range to this range, you're allowed to take this many, or from this range to this range, you're allowed to take this many. It's not that, it's not that specific. And I think most of the supervisors we have like that because it's a little bit more flexible. If they have a staff that, for whatever reason, maybe that week comes around and they're like, oh, well, I actually don't want to take that Friday as my flex day. I'd like to take Thursday. Well, they can just change it dynamically to change that record. Like they can go in and edit it to say, okay, no, instead I want to take Thursday as my day off. So there we go, flex day update.
If there's adjustments that need to be made on this, then would they just add it to that like regular adjustments thing that you were showing earlier, like the adjustments for the year type thing? Because just wondering, because like what I've been asked for the same feature is if I'm doing 9 days and I get the 10th off, and I work 7.5 each day, and one of those days happens to be a stat holiday,
Mm-hmm.
I actually get that time deducted from my vacation time, so I don't have to. So it doesn't get. I don't have to pay it some other way.
You get that time, like you get the stat time
The stat
deducted
time,
from you?
yeah, because I'm actually not working there, so it's
So you
assuming.
don't get the extra time off on that stat day.
Yeah. It's like instead of having to work, if that 9 days comes through and my flex days on the 10th, and
Yeah.
there's a stat holiday somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
That essentially means that I didn't work on there, so I didn't accumulate the time to achieve that 10.
Why would that mean you didn't work that stat?
Because
Like,
the stat doesn't count. You don't get the 7.75 hours on the stat day. 'Cause
you can
didn't
only
work
get
it.
7,
Yeah.
so you're missing out on that
So you have to,
0.75 hours.
yeah, you have to now work off the extra time.
Yeah, so that 0.75 hours that happens, I think they were calculating this about in a year, it probably adds up to about, I don't know, half a day, or 4.75.
Right, but they only flex for 14 weeks. They don't flex or something like that. We don't flex for the full year, so it'd be
So-
quite a bit more
so
if it was for a full year.
So the adjustment time, if I wanted to say like, in our case, we're just taking it off of we're taking that time away, then they still get the flex day.
Yep.
And instead of like them coming in for this 45 minutes.
Yeah, you tag that 45 minutes on
Yeah,
one of the other days.
that gets
sort of thing.
that time gets added to basically removed from their holidays.
Oh, okay.
Can I just put? Is there a way in here
You would
to
just if that were the scenario, you would just do that from like the manual deduction.
Okay.
But you have to do that for every person manually.
Yep.
That would be a pain.
Exactly.
Plus, you have to remember when they actually work their flex.
Yeah.
Because ours don't work it for the full year because of the academic year. You can't work it in, say, September or January.
Right.
So there's a lot of manual intervention you have to do when you've got a few. It's okay if you've got 3 admin staff, but if you've got 20, it's
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was like, when you specify the types, that you have a range, the starting date and an ending date. I mean, it could go forever, but you were able to say, between these months, this is what I want, and otherwise, then that.
That might be a very
achieve that.
specific thing, though. Does that happen in every single?
Do you
Yeah.
have even have blackout dates, like where people
No,
cannot do holidays
no.
during that period?
Yeah, we don't have that, and the only reason being is because from Central HR's perspective, they would never want us to have blackout dates. Like from their perspective, they would say employees should be able to take vacation year round, even though we know there's certain times when we wouldn't want them to take vacation. technically we're not allowed to tell employees you're not allowed to take vacation in September.
Technically, you can,
Oh, really?
absolutely.
Oh, interesting. Because
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I was just talking to the wrong person then, but yeah, that's what they told us.
And same with flex time.
Mhm.
It's at the discretion of the department.
Right.
Yeah, that might be specific to the department, like, but have you heard that scenario happen?
No, I haven't. Hasn't come up. Hasn't come up.
Does that happen in other faculties, things?
I don't know,
Do you guys have that scenario where you have like flex time?
on and off.
On and off?
Do we even have flex time?
We don't do
Yeah,
flex
nobody
time.
pays attention.
What's that?
Yeah, but only our HR admin pays attention. They
Yeah.
was just sort of locals.
Yeah, I can say probably for our flex time employees in UBC IT, and there's not many, but the ones that they do have, it would be more ad hoc. Like they would, rather than deduce from their vacation time, they would just say, like make up the time on another day, sort of thing. And they would trust them to do that.
That's right. That
Yeah.
becomes more complicated with the union because you're supposed to, as a manager, account for what they're doing during those extra time periods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions?
The HR is like annually they have to pay some kind of report like to collect the data and go back to like receive. Your system have the kind of ability like to extract the report for them.
Yeah. So I mean, we right now we just have the ability to run reports, and people are just copying and pasting those into Excel spreadsheets and sending them off if they need to. But yeah, certainly that's something we'd like to re-enable as we kind of hopefully migrate the application to Java to a new platform. We'd like to enhance the ability just because we know reporting is one of the main functions of this application. It's one of the main benefits. So we want to make that as easy as possible for people, for sure.
Kind of there's any data structure changes that you would need to change to this to help, like for improvements that people have suggested, like you're like, I can't do that because the structure of the data is not quite the way it needs to be.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Really, any of the suggestions that have come haven't really been around data structure as a reason we couldn't do things. It's really just resources. And also, we consider kind of cost benefit. If it's someone's requesting one report and it's just like one person requesting it, and we've never heard of that request from anyone else, or if we think it's maybe something that's valuable, we might poll some of the other departments to say, hey, would you find this report helpful? But if it's just that one person that's going to benefit, it's going to be pretty low in terms of our priority. Like we're probably not going to get to it just because we're so busy. So.
One thing, like, you're mostly kind of focused on the specific number of hours, and I was talking to the HR people, and they're using the current one that we have in the Faculty of Science. They use it two perspectives. One is to actually see when people are away from their desks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the hours, specific hours, is important.
Okay.
But they also use it for actual time. And sometimes there's a discrepancy between those two things. And I know you have it simplified because you only have to deal with the one, but if you actually wanted to represent that I was in the afternoon or in the morning, that I was gone, or if I was, and you'd have to change your data model for that kind of thing.
Yes.
And then
yes, we would.
The discrepancy, just like a heads up if you ever do change that, the discrepancy was if they take time off in the afternoon, but they are using their lunch hour as part of that time. The amount of time that they're away for reporting is less because they've used their hour, which isn't paid.
Right. Yeah. That I can see a lot of complications with that requirement, and that's hard. We do get some things where people are like, for this part of the collective agreement for QP 116, technically they're not entitled to this, and the application should limit them in that instance. And we kind of have to just say, we're going with an 80-20 rule. We're trying to cover 80% of the requirements, and those edge scenarios, there's going to have to be some either manual workaround or some understanding on the HR side or the admin side to say, hey, we can't really account for that entirely within the application. There has to be some allowance. So, yeah.
I know with that one, just because of that thing, we have some of the HRs duplicating the entire calendar just to make sure that.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, so it makes, if it's not calculating that stuff correctly, then we need to account for that, so we have a completely different duplication to make sure everybody's.
Yeah.
It seems like a waste of time.
Yeah, it does.
But at the same time, it's that scenario is helped find bugs because
Right.
cross-referencing all the information.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can definitely see where it would be helpful. It's just tedious, yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I don't remember. I saw some report about like an overview calendar. Is it actually, are there any calendar that's generated that will allow the supervisor to do the planning? Just to offhand to see exactly how many people's is going away that week before they approve? It just used for planning?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so if you went into reports and went to that current month vacation toil schedule, so right now I have highlighted my immediate team, so I could go to, say it's next month, in June, and if there were a bunch of requests in that month, I could see it and say, oh, okay, we're actually going to have 2 people away already during that time period.
So does that allow when everybody, like say, if I'm an employee, I'm not a supervisor or admin, and I like to plan for my vacation, and I want to see who in my group is going away, will I be able to see everybody?
Yep. Yes, you can. Yeah.
But you don't, is there stuff that you're not showing on this?
Yeah, so the only way you will see like personal, we call it personal leave, like sick time, compassionate leave, all that sort of stuff. The only way you'll see that for someone is if you're their supervisor. But if you're an employee, you wouldn't see your teammates' personal leave. You would just see their vacation, their working from home, their flex days, things like that.
Or not their doctor's appointment?
No, you wouldn't see that.
So even though they are absent on that day for that personal leave, you don't see they are absent.
No, and again, that was something, and whether it's true or not, I'm not sure, but that was like a directive we got from UBC HR and from a lot of the other administrators too, is that they didn't want, they could see that being a big grievance where people would be able to see when they had personal time off. So yeah.
People would be counting like, oh, that person had this.
Would a free busy be better, you think?
Possibly.
Instead of saying just like you only see vacation, you just see free busy. You don't know why they're absent.
Yeah.
It's just they're absent.
Yeah, theoretically. I think it's hard because people like to see, are they working from home that day, or are they on vacation, or is it a flex day for them, that sort of thing. And so if you have that sort of stipulation and then like a free busy sort of model, it kind of creates, I don't know, you're losing some features to gain the ability to see when people are away for personal time. So I don't know, it's hard to say.
Our calendar just shows flex and away. So it shows everything other is thrown into away. And then for some reason they distinguish flex. I don't know why that was important to them.
Yeah. So basically, you're doing free busy as well.
Yeah. But they do distinguish with flex. Yeah. Okay.
What's the cost of more of the system?
Yeah, so the implementation cost is $1,000, and that's usually just to recuperate for time. It's probably not even a true representation of how much time we actually spend on it. A lot of that is my time meeting with the people, going over the requirements for the different employment groups, the departments, all that sort of stuff, and getting that sort of just doing requirements gathering and that sort of thing, and then us working with the actual application to set up the instance, set up the database, and then some training for the administrators, that sort of thing. And then once we hand over the application, then it's $250 per month ongoing support, and that covers Yeah, it's 8x5, so it's not 24/7 support, but it's all requests, incidents, that sort of thing. Everything can come to us. We usually tell the users, like, we prefer if you go to your administrators first with questions, just because we find that most of the questions around PAT are HR related and they're not actually application related. But certainly they can come to us and we can answer them if possible, or we'll direct them back to their administrator if it's something HR related.
So we can purchase it as a faculty?
Yep. So I think there was a few faculties in the past where when they had approached UBC IT about PAT previously, and they were quoted this large number for support costs, and I think that's because what the previous manager was trying to do was trying to say, like, if you're a faculty of science, each one of your departments would have an instance, and that cost applies per instance. Whereas now we're kind of, myself and Taylor, our primary developer for PAT, we've kind of said, they don't really need separate instances for all your departments. We've kind of showed that with some of the larger groups we're working with, like arts, and we're working with faculty of medicine right now as well. So it really makes it really affordable cost-wise for them, because we're not charging per user. So if you have a large faculty, it's really cost-effective. Yeah, and then that cost, I mean, it might not be an accurate representation of how much time we're actually spending supporting them. Sometimes, some months it might be we don't get a lot of requests or incidents, but some months we might get a lot, and that's fine. But we want to try and make it as affordable for people as possible, just because we know the administrators spend a lot of time manually trying to come up with reports and stuff, so it's making their lives easier, which is great.
Can you make a request from home, or you have to be VPN to UBC to make a request?
Sorry, make a request for your unit to...
From home.
Oh, from home.
Yeah, how open is
via
access
VPN.
to it? You have to
You have to be on the UBC network. You have to be on the UBC network, so you'd have to VPN in. Yeah, if you want to make a request from home. Yeah. Any other questions?
So we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great.